Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of Wear Many Hats. Woo! We're back. As ever, please do us all a favour, like and share the page on LinkedIn. We're trying to grow the community and obviously inspire the next generation of facilities and property management professionals. Very excited today. We've got a really interesting guest, someone who operates in quite a unique environment. So we're going to really enjoy talking to him. I'd like to introduce Martin Frohock, who is the Global Workplace Director for Abcam. Hello, Martin. How you doing?
Hello, I'm great. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Have you had a good day?
Wonderful day today. Yeah. It's been nice to get back into town and have a look at some of my old haunts and meet some old faces. Yeah.
A few memories pop back into
A few memories from Lincoln's Inn Field. Yeah. Close time.
Right. Okay. And if anything interesting happened today, or
just met an architect looking at an expansion program for next year. Also met one of our QS guys as well, who've been working with for a few years. So just really getting prepared for the next big project.
Yeah. How far away is that then? Is it quite a way
away?
The
project about 6 months away to starting. Yeah, we just had the business case signed off, so it's quite early days. But I like to try and get ahead, especially with Christmas not far around the corner.
Exactly.
Sorry to drop the C-bomb in there.
No, it's all right. It's all right. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. When you've got kids, you got to know when it's coming. You got to plan for it because it's expensive.
Indeed.
To be quite frank, you know.
Yeah.
I start saving around January. Okay. Well, listen, Matt, I always like to start with a really easy question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about how you actually ended up in the world of facilities, property, and workplace.
Yeah. Like a lot of people, I guess I eventually fell into a facilities management role. So I started off as a mechanical design engineer, not building services, I should say. I kind of learned that later on in my working life, mostly aerospace and Formula 3 nose cones is what I was designing back in the day. It was the very first job I ever had.
What, for cars?
For cars, yeah. For
racing?
Carbon fibre racing cars, yeah.
Oh, Ethan will like chatting to you later on. He's a big racing
Mostly Caterham and Lotuses, so not top end. We're not talking Formula 1 vehicles.
Still not bad, though.
It's not bad. It's
not
bad.
Right. A bit of a climb to Spain.
It was a good role because it taught me, how to operate CAD, how to work in a drawing office, how to work on the shop floor,
right?
How to talk to customers.
Yeah.
It taught me all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
And that was for quite a small niche specialist company, which is kind of a theme throughout my career, I guess.
Yeah.
Then I decided I wanted to do something different. I outgrew the company, I think. So I went into food manufacturing, of all things, not the obvious kind of parallel. But
and that was with Hotel Chocolat.
Not initially. No,
oh, really?
That was it. That was my third role, I think, coming out of school.
Right.
So I tanked in school.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, I think they struggled to maintain my energy.
Yeah.
So I went and did an apprenticeship, went and did a HND eventually, and then I found my way to a mechanical degree.
Right.
And then I kind of settled down a bit by that stage.
Yeah.
But the food manufacturing was at Premier Foods.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You probably know them.
No, I know them.
Branston Pickle, all those well-known brands, Quaker Oats.
Very well-known brands, yeah.
So I worked in end-of-line packaging department as an ops manager, and they gave me a sort of a little insight into every department. A little bit of time in procurement, a little bit of time in HR, a lot of time in manufacturing. And then I eventually, as I always do, fell into a maintenance role, looking after the maintenance division. All the vehicles, forklift trucks, automated production lines.
Yeah, all the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I kind of fell in love without knowing it, facilities management. And then I found the role at Hotel Chocolat, which was setting up their first processing plant in Cambridgeshire. Fell in love with that as well.
So that was kind of when they were starting out then?
Yeah, it was brand new. Yeah. They'd always had a presence in the UK with the sales side of things, and they were selling out of a garage basically when the founders initially started the business. But then when they wanted to scale up and have the first chocolate processing plant and emulsion plant, they needed someone who knew their way around machinery and production.
Yeah.
And I was the best they could do at the time. So
I know that site actually. I've been there.
Do you? At Red One's Way?
Yeah. I did a site visit there. Yeah, in another life.
Okay,
but I did do a site visit there. It was quite an interesting one.
No, I loved it. I
like the shop as well. Though.
Yeah. I would still get a discount there. So I obviously made an impression.
Oh, yeah. See, the wife always liked it when I went there because I always came back with chocolates.
It was brilliant. Yeah. And honestly, in terms of an experience, I was going with the ops director at the time, procuring equipment from all over the UK, all over Europe, actually.
Yeah.
Bringing it back, wiring it in, setting it up, setting the production run, writing all their SOPs for the production. And then
so you were on the tools as well then?
Everything, all the way through. That was the thing I liked about it, was you kind of owned the product at the end.
Right.
And then, someone tapped me on the shoulder one day and said, hey, I've seen this weird role. It's called a facilities manager. You should go and have a look at it.
This weird role.
Didn't make sense to them or me at the time.
Yeah.
But it seemed to tick all the boxes in terms of day-to-day what we'd be doing, and it looked technical enough that it would challenge me, and it was a bit more breadth to it. I could travel a bit more, see a few new sites. So I jumped into NHSBT, or blood service as it was at the time, and that was the start of my FM career.
Right. Okay.
All 18 years ago, I suppose now.
Yeah. And how did you, obviously coming from more of a mechanical background, I suppose, how did you find that transition into the facilities property world? Was it difficult? Was it easy?
I found it incredibly easy. I'm
right.
the youngest of a big family, so I've always had to sort of find a way of getting stuff done and finding my own feet.
You used to have to scrap for your food.
I had to scrap my way up. Exactly.
Balls at the dinner table. Yeah.
No, and it does though, right? Being in that environment
Builds
teaches
character.
you, people skills. I've always managed to jump in, the middle of a group of people and usually get on with them pretty well, and I found the social side of things really interesting. So what people would talk about as the soft side of facilities management, I actually loved. So coming away from the mechanical and the technical for a short time didn't bother me, actually. It was a good chance to do something a bit different.
And how did you find operating within a public body? Did you find the bureaucracy, was it difficult, or was it akin to what you were used to previously?
I don't know. I've got a bit of bias in that I joined at the time when it was DEFRA and it was transitioning to the NHS. So I've got to say that sort of transition is quite similar to a lot of the work I'm doing now with mergers and acquisitions, actually bringing on parts of departments, integrating with other businesses. It felt quite similar to that, to be fair.
Right, okay.
So it didn't feel like what you would stereotypically describe an NHS property like. In fact, we were going through massive change at the time. We were bringing on brand new PPM systems, building the big blood processing laboratory out in Bristol, Filton, if you know it. And it was a time when the blood service was actually scaling up quite a bit. So there's loads of new offices to open, loads of new estate changes, lots of new technology to bring into the business, which I really enjoyed. Yeah,
it sounds like a very... So, look, how old were you then, Martin, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, don't ask me that, Mark.
Nah, come on.
Probably 22, 23, something like that.
That's a big role for 22, 23, isn't it?
Yeah, it was at the time. Yeah, I was lucky. I worked for a guy who's ex-REME out the army, very structured, all the things I'm not. Or wasn't, should I say. Yeah. Very organised, very structured, very diligent, quite slow and methodical in terms of the way he worked. And I came in 100 mile an hour, very creative, full of energy, and we just gelled really well. So he's now, I think, still director of the National Blood Service, all of it. Right. And he, just put an arm around me, developed me, gave me a few side projects, which, obviously made a positive impact. And it was good.
So he's been a bit of a mentor. Would you say he was like your first mentor in the industry?
Yeah, he probably was. Yeah.
Do you still speak now? Do you keep?
Yeah, still talk to him every now and again.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, lots of people come on the show and they talk about it, and they're still converse with those people today. I think that's brilliant.
I think it's one of the most important things you can do, to be honest, is keep those networks going. You never know when you're going to be helping up, helping down, vice versa. I think it's a relatively small industry. Once you have a few years in it, and I think it's important to remember that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And then you kind of made another change again, but it was once again relatively different. In the charity sector. Cancer research.
Yep. In terms of the environment, very similar actually. Labs, clean rooms, beautiful corporate offices. Angel of Islington here was the move that was happening about 2 years after I joined, which was great. So my role was to look after all the labs at CIUK. We kind of divided it up into three roles: the retail role, the commercial office and estates role, which is a bit more CRE, and then the labs role. So that was when I found the labs, because I was the more technical of the three.
Well, the labs are challenging, aren't they? There's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration. Yeah. Just even just cleaning them, securing them, making sure that you meet certain standards and requirements. So was that a challenge in terms of when, I know that you did it within the NHS, but when you first came into that, was it difficult to get your head round, or did you take to it quite easily?
So I've always had a thirst for learning something new. I mean,
apart from in school,
exactly. Ironically, and it's been an upward struggle ever since. No, I think if you can learn something new every day, you're onto a winner, and that's the reason why I've stayed in workplace and FM. To be fair, because you genuinely have the chance to learn something new every day. Yeah. And so that chance, that steep learning curve, was an absolute upside for me. I loved it. Brand new clean rooms, boilers that you could walk through, air handling regimes that would blow your wig off. It was really something else, and it was a brand new lab, purpose built, 85 million capex. So wonderful on the Cambridge Biomedical campus. So you're not going to get better than that. No. So I just grabbed it with both hands and joined a brilliant team as well, to be fair. It gave me a chance to get involved in the Angel project, in the Crick project, little kind of side projects at the same time as running the main estate. But no, it ticked all the boxes for me, and such a good experience. I still look back at it now because it was an all in-house team as well. We recruited everyone, even cleaners, catering providers. Everyone was in-house at that time. The model's changed a little bit since, but the chance to just develop that team, which was about 60 deep at the time, was just probably a once in a lifetime thing. To be honest.
Of course, And you actually stayed there quite a while as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I loved it. We did some great things. I think we were the first building, I believe, in the UK to get ISO 14001 accreditation, which was a new thing at the time.
Oh, really?
And we kind of just did that off the spur because we felt we had quite an efficient building. We felt we had the technology to drive it. We had quite a well-governed facility at the time. And like you say, there's so much to labs. I think if you can crack that shell in labs, you can do that anywhere.
Yeah, of course,
So it was a really good sort of launch pad, I think, CRUK.
So did that kind of frame your career for the remainder then? Because although you've made changes, you've kind of stayed loosely within an environment that has that sort of lab-based, technical-based.
I think it's the technical side of things. I think because, technology's the Moore's law, right? It's always changing. It's always doubling in complexity, doubling in speed, halving in size. I love the technology side of things, I've got to admit, because it just moves at such a pace. And if you can find the right place, that sweet spot where technology is going to have that impact and create an automation or create an insight for you, I think you're onto a winner. So I've always looked for that technical kind of sharpness in businesses. That's what I think that's what keeps it fresh and interesting.
Right. So sticking with technology, how do you view the Internet of Things and AI, and how do you think that will develop across the industry over the next 5-10 years? I mean, my view is it's going to accelerate massively. But based on your technical experience, it'd be quite interesting to hear what you think about that.
I'll probably unpack that into two, if that's all right.
No, go on, crack on.
Two long questions. So in terms of Internet of Things, I worked for Arm Technologies for 8 years, and a big part of that business was designing best-in-class technology and IoT. We had an IoT division, actually.
Oh, really?
And I was quite lucky to experiment with multiple devices, LoRa gateways, Bluetooth beacons, all these sensor technologies in our own backyard. I think the availability of the devices and the cost and affordability of the devices is just going to proliferate that over the next 5 to 10 years. It already is. But I think the end state in terms of IoT is autonomous buildings, is the ability for, and you're seeing it already in buildings like the Edge and Trosca industry in San Diego, where these sensors create enough data, and with a machine learning layer on top of them can adjust and tweak according to the environment, according to the outcome of that technology. That makes sense. I think the autonomous buildings is the future. I think the building industry and the affordability is kind of holding that back at the moment. But as we're seeing early adopters doing it, it becomes more devices that flood into the industry, the more affordable it becomes. And I think in terms of what we're doing now, AI itself, even simple things like predictive text, it can just speed up what we're already doing. I don't think you necessarily have to remove the human, and I don't think you should remove the human from that mix, from that formula. But I think the data availability, the insights we can get, and the time that we can save with trying to make sense of what's going on in our building, how people are navigating our building, what services are landing well, which services aren't landing well, are just going to change no end over the next decade. But the number one has to be the environment and our net zero commitments. I mean, we're not going to get there without a technological breakthrough. And I think we've got to say that, the automation, the analytics that you can get from machine learning, if not AI, is the only way we're going to get there.
I always think that the challenge with things like AI and automation and things like that is just the inability of certain programs and technologies to communicate with each other. So as it when you bolt something on, rather than having an overarching system that can deal with everything, there doesn't seem to be that system out there.
I've seen a few. So about 5 years ago now, I was working with a software provider who remain unnamed because I don't think it's fully patented yet. But this whole single pane of glass model, as in the ability to create a middleware that will connect all these multiple languages, multiple program types to a single unified code. And once you've got that single unified code, you can instruct the machine to do whatever you want, essentially. But I think without even instructing machines to do stuff, or the machine learning and actually acting on that itself. I think we have to understand the questions that we're asking the technology first.
Yeah.
I think
the output is only ever as good as the input, isn't it?
Yeah.
In reality.
Yeah.
Because AI, although we call it AI, it's not really AI. Is it?
No.
It's not really a thinking machine in the background going, it's utilizing the data that's been inputted by Google or what's available on the internet.
A lot of it is just learnt models with big data. And I think I do roll my eyes a little bit sometimes when people say AI, because in terms of the infrastructure and building industry, I haven't seen many examples of that, with the exception of energy management and some carbon reduction technologies. I think most of it is machine learned, multiple databases stitched together. So, but I think it starts with that, right? If you're investing in a technology, and most of the time that's to generate data and to automate a process. So what question are you trying to answer with that automated process? Or with that data? What are you trying to answer? If you understand that, then you can drive the machine, you can drive that program, you can drive the logic to whatever you want, because it will become available. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. So how far away do you think that is?
I think it's already here.
Oh, really?
I'll say it's already here. Yeah. I think when I look at some of the devices that are in play in our facility right now, we're designing and manufacturing antibodies. So we've got some high throughput cell engineering tools, which are automated liquid handlers, which dose a piece of fluid from one side of a lab to another. They measure it, they'll label the container, they'll seal the container, they'll put a barcode on it, they'll drop it into a tray, and it's product ready to go out on a bit of dry ice to the customer.
Right.
Now, that sounds like just a robot doing something, moving from point A to point B to point C. Yeah. But there's a lot of what they call fuzzy logic in between, where something misses a data point or drops something, and it has to act accordingly. Yeah, you can't afford for these multi-million-pound machines to kind of smash and connect with the wrong robotic arm. So they're clever enough to learn from those mistakes and then not drop things in the same way next time.
Yeah. So do you think that because we have this tool now, in terms of what we call AI, but it's not necessarily AI, do you think that the learning with regards to that will accelerate exponentially over the next 5 years, and what that tool can give us will just continue? You mentioned a theory earlier on, I can't remember what it's called.
Moore's Law.
Moore's Law, yeah. Do you think that we'll see that with AI? Or?
Well, I keep coming back to machine learning. I think where we're seeing a lot of breakthroughs at the moment are actually predictive machine learning tools and software layers. They're not AI per se.
Okay.
But that's the kind of end state when we do get to that artificial intelligence. We don't need to fill it with data. We don't need to teach it anything. It is its own.
It's doing it itself.
It's able to make those decisions.
Scary.
It's able to learn.
Do you think it's scary?
I think it's exciting.
I think it's exciting, but a little bit scary. It's like when you get on a roller coaster for the first time that you've not been on, you're like, oh, this could kill me. It's not going to, but it could. Like if something went wrong.
It could, it could. Reading a really good book at the moment, actually, about AI in healthcare. So you have to ask me that question again in
10 years' time. We'll do a part 2.
If I'm still here.
Okay. Well, another thing. Talk to us a little bit about learning and development across your career. In terms of learning opportunities and development opportunities that you've experienced as a professional, what have you found that has helped you?
Yep.
And also, what do you think would help people that were moving into the industry? What would you recommend?
Yeah, good question. I always see facilities management as a bit of a Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
It's this big thing that you've got to bite off, but there are so many holes and opportunities that exist in. I think it doesn't matter which one you jump into. So if you're in it, you'll eventually come out having eaten the whole slice. Might not be the best analogy in the world, but I think that's where, I've started. If in doubt, jump into the next best thing and take every opportunity that gets thrown at you. Yeah. I've been super, super lucky. I've learned everything from, like we said, on the large, long scale mechanical engineering degree to business management, organizational studies. And then I've had short ones. I even did nuclear physics as a short postgraduate certificate.
Right, okay.
I was working for CRUK and we had radiators, and I wanted to understand the physics of isotopes at the time. And I thought, I don't need to wait for someone to teach me. That might take a while. I'll go and do an open university course.
Right.
And I think what I'd take from that is that there is no one way. You
Yeah.
can go and do an IFMA sponsored postgraduate degree, and
Yeah,
I fully support that. That's a really good way of getting a broad knowledge and coming out as a professional FM, having bolted all these pieces together.
Yeah.
My learning style was to go and really deep dive in a certain area and come back up and see how it fitted back together.
Yeah, so you needed a frame of reference effectively. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And I think that's where, IFMA, IWFM and these guys get it right, is they've got this beautiful framework. I don't necessarily think you have to dive straight in. They won't thank me for this, but dive straight into those platforms or those platforms on their own. Yeah. I think you can afford to spend a bit of time over here learning chemistry, or a bit of time over there learning automation, or a bit of time over here learning plant maintenance. Yeah. And I've been a great believer of, sitting on the shoulder of an engineer for a day, or just asking the why, just being as...
I love that idea, that I think it's the first time that anybody's ever mentioned it, actually. Rather than just learning about the industry or, facilities management, building management, or anything along those lines, you actually went out of your way to learn the industry that the company you deliver the services for is involved in.
Yep.
Which I thought, that's really interesting. That I think that would have given you a real insight in terms of what they want to achieve across their workplaces and so on and so forth. Especially if you're studying nuclear physics and things like that.
I've always said, I was talking to my daughter, funny enough, she's only 7, so I'm not quite giving her career advice yet. Not that she'd take it, but she asked me of 2 words that I take into work every day. I thought, blimey, 2 words. I can barely stick to 20 words, as you've found out. But I think being curious, number one, like that. Being constantly curious, always asking why, not being happy with a throwaway answer. Go and learn it yourself.
To be fair, 7-year-olds are good at that as well.
7-year-olds are great at that. And
why?
We lose it, right? We lose it as we get older.
We do,
I've tried my hardest not to. So I'm always the guy who's still asking, just to get it. Because once it's in there, it's quite difficult to forget. So the why, and then the hunger as well. Be super hungry, because there are so many opportunities out there. I don't think you can necessarily go in FM with too much of a vision of which direction you'll take, because you'll get attracted to a certain part of FM, whether it's project management side, corporate real estate side, HR elements and people experience. It could be any element of FM, and it'll take you in that direction. I think you just have to be happy to squiggle in your career for a short amount of time.
I agree. Yeah,
and then
it's
come
very
back.
true. Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. So what would you say in terms of like the overall industry and the things that you do, what's the most enjoyable part for you outside of technology? Because I know you like that. Outside of technology, what parts of the industry do you really enjoy?
I have 2.
Oh, go on then.
I have 2. I think the first one's got to be the people in the industry. Yeah. Because similarly to the learning and development side of things, you've got so many different walks of life. Yeah. And you're in that lucky broad role, and I don't think there are many industries that are similar to that. Actually, you can get to talk to the CEO one day, you come out, and then you're having a chat to a housekeeper within 2 minutes, and then you're back out and you talk to an office manager in Shanghai for 20 minutes.
You got to be an everyman, haven't you? Got to be an every person.
Yeah, you really do. You have to wear many hats.
Yes, weirdly. You do. It's so true. Well done for getting it in there as well.
Thank you. I think that is definitely the beauty of it, and that's the key thing that keeps bringing me back. One thing I love, because I've been very lucky to have this, is to develop that in-house capability and people of tomorrow for the industry as well, in all shapes, sizes and creeds. We've got an incredibly diverse team in Abcam, and I've been lucky to have diverse teams over my career, but that hunger to wake up and how can I help that person get to that next role, to that next project? How can I help them to achieve that? Really, really gets me out of bed every morning.
Okay, so is succession planning something that you're heavily involved in, and something that you talk to us a little bit about how you do that as a professional? Because
how do I do that?
I think people would be really interested in that. In terms of what your approach to that is.
Okay, of course, it depends on the team you have and the background, and it is basically taking every individual as a single human and understanding what drives them and understanding what they want.
Some like money. Some like a pat on the back.
Well, I think a lot of it actually does start with what's driving you. So I don't want to advertise anyone else, but there's this Squiggly Careers framework. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Squiggly Careers? No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's quite a cool one. I think it's Amazing If is the official website and Instagram account and whatnot.
Okay.
But, they've done a bit of professional development in Abcam of late, and they have this thing called the Squiggly Careers framework.
Right.
And if you look at it, it is essentially that: is your career can go in left, right, up, down. It can go in any direction.
Yeah.
It's a framework to help you get to where you want to get to.
Yeah.
But it starts with what they call the career canvas, which is discover the things that motivate you, discover the things that kind of irk you, discover the things that will drive you. And there's 6 boxes.
Right.
And if anyone's ever in doubt in my team, I'll always get them to come back to the career canvas and we'll do the coaching questions and we'll sit and do a workshop until we're comfortable that we've got enough words in each of the boxes that we've got an idea of what to do next.
Yeah.
So I think outside of that constant coaching and kind of taking people off for that chat as regularly as you possibly can. And I do that quite often. You'll see me walking around campus with someone in the team.
That's good.
I think a lot of it is actually designing yourself out of your role, out of your current role.
Right.
Remember, as the first week.
I like that term, designing yourself out of your current role. I do like that terminology.
It's a bit of a counterintuitive one, isn't it? But I remember first week in my management degree, actually, one of the professors said that. He said, there's a management methodology called managed by walking around.
Right.
And one part of that was the best managers make themselves redundant.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that just resonated with me. I thought, that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
I spent the next couple of days thinking, but no, he's right. Because how on earth am I going to get to my next step if I'm still dependent, or people around me are still dependent on me being in that current role?
Exactly.
And so I've spent the rest of my career trying to make myself redundant, essentially.
It worked all anyway?
It's worked once. I have to say that. It worked once.
Okay.
And it was the best thing I ever did as well.
Really?
So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Good stuff. So, obviously you mentioned that you had a mentor. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing was there one, multiple, various stages of your career?
Multiple.
Is mentoring something that you do now and that you give back actively in your current roles? And if you do, how do you think the best way to structure a mentor is it? Do you prefer it where it's unofficial and it's more of you have a chat, or do you like to formalize it? Because there's different ways of doing mentoring programs, and everybody likes different ways. For you? What's the best way for you to?
Yeah, I like the test of being able to go with whatever the mentee needs, I guess. So I am part of 2 formal mentor networks, and they work fine. We spend 2 weeks blind dating to try and match and get the right pairing, because that's critical, right?
Yeah, of course.
A compatible pair, mentor and mentee, and that works fine. I got to say, I enjoyed the more informal, where someone says, I'd like to learn a bit more about how you got to where you did and learn from that, and just bounce off you once a week, once every fortnight. And then all of a sudden that turns into almost a bi-daily thing. And, it's the biggest amount of time you have to commit. But I don't think any flavour of mentoring is right or wrong per se.
No, I don't think so either. It's just, I think people have preferences, don't they? Because some organisations like to formalise it, don't they? Because it becomes part of a person's professional development plan or whatever that they can revert back to. Me personally, I'm like you. I would much rather just be able to pick up the phone and have a chat, send a text message or something along those lines, like in a more casual approach. But some people like that formal approach, don't they?
I think it depends on where you are as well. If you're in the early stages of your career, the mentoring and the advice you need would be very different to where I'm at. So the way I do it now, I've got probably 12 mentors or coaches that support me day to day, and I will pick and choose depending on what I'm struggling with or what. So
you basically have like a network of mentors.
Exactly.
That's quite interesting.
And 1 or 2 of them I might not talk to for a year, but I think that problem, I know just a person to bounce off, because I know they've been there 10 years ago, and I know they came out the other side. It would help me to talk through this problem with them. Let's get on the blower, grab a beer, grab a coffee, walk around the campus, whatever it is, and I'll do that. And I think that's, again, understanding the person, understanding what you can get from that interaction. When you're at the early part of your career, you don't necessarily know the right way and who's who and who's strong in which area and how you're going to get the best response back.
Yeah, of course, I do like that idea, though, a network of mentors.
Honestly.
Very good advice there to anybody listening, a network of mentors, because we talk about networking quite a bit on the show. But we've never really talked about it in that sense. But I guess that in its simplest terms, that is what we're doing.
Yeah, you look at a sporting analogy, right?
Yeah.
I follow American football, love it. Big NFL fan. Sorry to get that in there.
Nice. Who's your team?
I'm a bit of a glory hogger, but I like Cleveland Browns at the moment.
Okay.
I just think,
Are they good? Are they good?
No, awful. They're having a horrible few years of it.
So why are you a glory hunter then?
They had a great few years and they invested heavily and got all the flashiest players. So I must admit, I follow the flash.
You follow the flash.
But those guys, the quarterbacks, they have 10, 15 people strong. They have 3 physicians, 2 nutritionists, 5 psychologists. They have these multiple roles because you're talking about incremental improvement.
Yeah,
and
getting that additional 0.5%.
Exactly. Like that, And not to compare myself to a quarterback, not for 1 minute, but I think when you're talking about tweaking something here or just bouncing an idea off something there, it helps to have a bigger group of people because we all know from our parents you get 1 or 2 typical responses from your parents, right?
And I usually got shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up, Mark.
It's probably my go-to.
Okay, cool. And let's talk a little bit about obviously your career. Looking at your profile, you've had multiple promotions throughout your career, which is fantastic to see. How did you go about structuring your career to ensure that you were in a position to be promoted? And what advice would you give to somebody who was, for example, looking to move or progress their career at the minute? What advice would you give them? What do you think they need to do?
I think I've always been super hungry. I've always every day been thinking. Initially, admittedly, early on in my career, I was thinking about the promotion quite a lot. I was thinking, what has that person in that role, either in that business or in another business that I could compare to, got that I don't? Yeah. So in the early years, it was health and safety qualifications. It was kind of fashionable. FMs were just picking up their knee boshes. We'll go and do that. Yeah. But I'm not happy with just going and doing a knee bosh. I'll do the knee bosh and then I'll do occupational health as an addition. Right. Then I'll do the environmental certificate as an addition. Right. So I think because I fell behind at school quite a bit, I've always felt like I was catching up. And it wasn't enough just to do enough. You had to go.
You had to do
110%, 120%.
No, I get that. I do understand that.
So I think that's given me a really nice chip on my shoulder to use as fuel. And I think ultimately it comes down to just being the hardest working person in the room. Yeah. So
like The Rock says.
Like The Rock says.
You know The Rock?
Yeah.
You've got to be the hardest working person in the room at all times.
Again, not comparing to him.
Yeah. You've got to go into work and lay off the smack down, as they say.
There's a lot of truth to it, I think.
It is true.
I'm still, every now and again in the office at 10 o'clock at night, because I'm still thinking something over. And like most people, I don't really switch off from work.
No, I'm terrible.
I must admit, I do struggle with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not just that. You have to position yourself. So I do think it starts with surrounding yourself with the right people, whether that's mentors or teams. And if you're not in that right position, you need to find ways of getting that either from outside or maybe time to move.
Yeah.
But I've always believed in doing your research. So if you're not getting what you need within your current business, is look at similar organizations, look at peer organizations. Yeah. What are they doing? What job adverts are they putting out? What are they asking for in role descriptions? Yeah. What is that next role for you and where are your gaps? Yeah. So I've always done these gap analysis in my head. So I always think, even when I'm in a meeting with someone, weird enough, I'm thinking, amazing. Wonder how they got to that. Oh, okay. It's that element. I haven't had 5 years of program managers. Wonder how I can get that. Don't do that so much these days. Got to be said. But I think a lot of it was really just looking for those gaps in your own knowledge and then being hungry to learn.
Okay. Have you ever accepted a promotion whilst knowing that you perhaps didn't have the skills to deliver? So, have you taken that entrepreneurial approach whereby no, I can't do it, but I'll learn.
I think I've probably every promotion actually. Right. Okay. I don't think I've had one except for maybe this recent one. To be honest, I felt this role was one that I've been looking for a little while. Yeah, and I'm really glad to have had it. And I think I'm succeeding in it. Well, time will tell. But
well, you're still there. That's usually a good indicator. Exactly. It usually is a good indicator.
It is. Yeah. No, I think I definitely. That. Again, it goes back to being curious and trying to understand and being hungry. And I think whenever I've always felt a little bit nervous that I'm not capable, it's not been because of the facilities side of things.
No.
It's been because of the business that I'm supporting.
Yeah.
When you work for world's R&D leader and you work for a pharmaceuticals company, you work in aerospace, you work in fast-moving consumer goods, it's quite scary.
Oh, yeah.
Especially as a 20-year-old, 25-year-old.
A lot of responsibility. It's like a signal. I was quite surprised when you told me how old you were when you got that first role, because that is a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of weight there. Because if something goes wrong, there's consequences to it going wrong. So, you must have been a very impressive young man, Martin.
I think I started early for sure. I think because, like I said, I was always catching up, coming out of school, always catching up, or always felt I was catching up. So I was always putting in the extra hours. And always the last one there at the end of the day. But I think a lot of it just comes down for that thirst for learning, and always looking for the next thing, and always looking for areas that I can improve, and areas that people around me can improve, and areas I can support others to improve. Just constantly just looking for opportunities, really.
It's about adding new boxes to your skills, isn't it?
Yeah.
New boxes in your brain, which allows you to develop as an individual, both professionally and personally. Yeah,
definitely.
And also, for anybody listening out there, I really think it's about just grabbing hold of opportunity with two hands.
Yep.
Never say no to anything that's potentially going to be great for you. Even if you don't know what you're doing, just try and fake it till you make it. Blag it a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people out there that are willing to offer advice. If you go into things in the right way, being humble, being empathetic, being curious. I think genuinely, especially in the FM industry, there's enough old heads like me out there that you'll find someone that will be willing to give you advice and support you along the way. And you've got enough time typically to go and, research things after the event. Yeah. Just learn, I guess, to hold it back maybe in that meeting. You say, it's okay to say, I'll come back to you in the next few hours.
I don't know. I'll need to look into it.
Exactly.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think they're three of the most important words in the English language. I don't know. Let me come back. Rather than just trying to blag it too much.
I totally agree.
Okay. Similar to me, you've been in the industry close to sort of 20 odd years. And you've seen the development of ESG during that period. Obviously it started coming in, between 5 and 7 years ago, something along those lines. It started to become more prominent throughout the industry. It's developed into something else now, something completely different to what it was when we first started talking about it. What's your view on it, and how do you see the industry developing alongside it? How do you see it playing out?
Good question. Again, probably unpack that a little bit. I think when a lot of people hear ESG, they go straight to, especially in facilities, the environmental side of things, and forget about the social.
I say this all the time. I say this on the show all the time. We're incredibly good at the E. We're pretty good at the G because we have to be social, but we don't necessarily do great.
But ironically, as an industry, one of the most sociable, one of the most diverse, eclectic group of people you're ever going to meet.
And it's all about people.
It's all about people. Yeah, it's all about people, whether it's our Venezuelan housekeeping team or it's our Canadian chef, or it's unreal the amount of diversity we've got in this industry.
Of course,
I think we don't often think about it enough to promote it, but also to use that knowledge and that breadth of experience and different styles and different flavors, if you like, in the workplace.
Completely agree.
I think we're really well positioned from that perspective. We just need to muscle our way into employee resource groups and into some of those circles. I found the groups that I affiliate with and invest a lot of time in, that I've made a huge impact. And in fact, every one of my leadership team, the groups that we were talking about it last night on a call, that they've participated in, make a huge impact. We're one of the loudest voices because we're in that very rare place where we can affect the environment that people walk into every day, or the tools that people use every day.
Of course,
we build that house that people reside in. And the same can't be said for a lot of other teams. And I think in terms of in terms of the environment, we've still got a long way to go. But again, we're really well placed. We have the keys to the car. We put the fuel in. We maintain things. We can really make a huge impact. I think a lot of the time we're not brave enough with how we drive our buildings, with how we run our estates. And we're in a bit of a kind of...
Unpack that a little bit. When you say not brave enough, what do you mean?
I think sometimes business objectives, sort of wider business strategy can stop us from doing what we inherently know is the right thing. Whether it's for tuning down certain services, consolidating real estate, making
so effectively sometimes budgets can become difficult to manage when you want to try and do a new initiative or complete, and that's understandable as well, isn't it? It's about trying to find ways to maneuver yourself around that, isn't it? Which is difficult, especially at times like now where there's not a lot of money about. There's not as much as usual.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone's kind of in a weird transition now, back from COVID. We're starting to see that real push back to more site presence and more occupancy and drive, and going backwards in some ways.
England got in 2 finals and lost both.
Got in 2 finals, crazy times.
It is. I can't believe I'm living through it.
It is. You have to pinch yourself in some ways. I've got to say, I really enjoyed the last 5 years, with the exception of that horrible early experience, because it sort of hit a bit of a reset button, and I think it forced the rest of the corporate world to think about why we have these workplaces, what value they bring, and how big a part they are of the employee proposition. And I think that's where the ESG circle completes from a workplace and facilities point of view. When you realise the impact that you can have just by listening and connecting those networks, and really understanding how to drive the buildings to create the right environment. And if they're not, listen to your employee base, listen to your colleagues and your associates. And
I think history will look upon COVID very differently to how we look at it because we experienced it. But I think in 50 years' time, it'll be recognised, the shift that it created within society will be recognised, and maybe we don't recognise that right now. And that's the whole of society. But even when you just apply that to facilities management, property management, all of the things that you guys probably consider now, you wouldn't have considered prior to COVID. It's created it's created new ideas, new rationale, new ways of working, different ways of working as teams. We're utilising technology a lot more than we probably ever did as an industry. So, I'll be long gone in 50 years' time, but I'm sure that as a society, we'll look back at it as a real turning point, in the same way that we look at World War II, I think, or even World War One.
I mean, if I think back 5 years, the amount of dialogue that I had back then with senior leaders, with colleagues doing their job, and I'm trying to understand how I could facilitate, how I could create a better environment for them to thrive. It was de minimis. It was like 5-10% of my week. Now it's 80-90% of my week. And I know a lot of that's because my role's changed and, doing a slightly broader role. But I do think that value that we bring and that the facilities bring is really understood now. And it's just businesses trying to shake out, what's left with the sort of aftermath of COVID.
But how great is that? How great is it that the recognition is now there for the industry as a whole in terms of what, all of those, hundreds of thousands of professionals do, not just in the UK, but worldwide, to make sure that everything runs.
It is. It's that great shake-up, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember speaking at a conference about 6 years ago now, and I'm not sure if I quite bought it myself at the time, but I had to say something smart. So I was talking about the sort of people, place, and technology, and how kind of we were the central part of that, bringing HR and technology and IT together with facilities. And it's this thing called workplace. And I kind of said it and sort of half believed it, but we saw that happen. We spent 2.5 years in the UK, 3 years if you're in APAC, most of APAC, trying to figure out how us three work together for a proposition, and how we bring people back, and how we modify our buildings and our technology to create a hybrid model for people. And we're now seeing the benefits and also some of the disbenefits of that. But it'll be super exciting to see where the industry goes in the next 10 years.
How have you guys transitioned post-COVID in terms of that hybrid working philosophy? Have you got everybody back? Have you got, is it a mixture? Have you got the twats, as we like to call them?
Can you explain that one to me?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
It's not TWA, TWT.
I haven't heard that one for a little while. Are you going to edit that out?
No, I'll leave it.
No, you're going to leave it. I was with Arm when COVID initially happened, the first lockdown. So I was in my shed at home. I built the shed 3 months before COVID, I should have said.
Oh, really?
Said shed.
Yeah,
so I was quite lucky.
Yeah.
So transition for, not just selfishly for me, but for Arm was really quick. We're a digital company. We're designing chips, microprocessors. So most of that was actually software based. So, unless you had a board farm in the office and there was only a couple of hundred of those guys globally, it was quite smooth.
Right.
All we had to think about was how do we keep everyone close as a community? How do we upskill those that are fairly new to the role? How do we bring on those sort of younger guys in their employment journey? And we scratched our heads for a few years. I was super lucky that I started the job as the strategy lead then as well. So it was my job to figure out with a small team around me how we get the good data out of what the buildings have done over the last few years, how we understand what technology we can invest in and install over the next few years, and how we can write the white paper for how we come back when we come back. Okay. So it was writing the workplace strategy for for Arm globally. That gave me a chance to chat to a couple of thousand people actually globally to really understand what they need and really inform that plan. And then that allowed me to jump into my now role in Abcam with all that data, all that insight, all the mess ups that we made along the way and all the lessons we learned so that I wouldn't make the same mistake twice. So I learned that a lot of it is about having that network. So you've got a voice in every single office. Because it's not enough to forget about the Adelaide. It just so happens to be less close geographically to you. There is a voice. They are a part of the wider network that we have.
I'd be working out of Adelaide every winter, by the way.
You would.
I'd do 6 months in Adelaide. 6 months.
I haven't quite wangled that one yet.
But you'd have to work out so you can take the family as well.
I don't know. I might leave behind. Lots of work over there.
Well, exactly. Lots to do.
It's tricky. It is tricky. And I think it's just, you got to work your ass off really to keep those networks up, to keep the voice both ways. Listen to what's landing well, what's not landing well, and learn from it. And pivot if you have to, but also understand where you're delivering services, where your demands are, where the offices need to grow, need to shrink. I think that voice and that active listening is probably one of those key things that's helped us to come back. In terms of where we're at, we are increasing the volume over time. Right. But in labs, you're super lucky because we have manufacturing labs, we have antibody discovery labs, we have what we call test and automation labs. We always had a critical mass of people on site in the labs. You can't do labs in your shed at home.
No, you can't. No.
Not compliantly anyway. And so we always had a critical mass of people in the office, in the location, working safely. But that just made it that much easier because you had a ready-made community to kind of bring people back into. It wasn't a ghost town that you had to then kind of mobilise overnight and to create excitement to entice people back. We just kind of had to build it incrementally. So we have had to build wellbeing programs, exciting events to really, keep people back more than they would
create that community.
But you had that ready existing community there, that structure, if you like, to build off of, which helped.
Right. Okay. Good stuff. And outside of work, what do you like to get up to outside of work? What gives you the most enjoyment?
I'll have to say family, just because at some point they'll listen to this.
Exactly. I say that all the time.
No, family are definitely everything to me. I've got a young daughter who's 7 and a young son who's 2, and a lovely wife, and we just camper van around the UK and Europe most of the time. That's how we spend most of our evenings. Planning the next trip.
Wow. So have you got your own camper van then?
Got our own camper van, Had it for quite a few years. It's a 4-berth, so it's decent size. Just about fits on the drive.
Really?
But we spend almost all of our non-working life planning the next adventure.
Fair play.
Proper adventure. And I love my running. I love my triathlons. I love just being outdoors, to be honest. Any excuse. The irony of being a facilities person who lives and breathes buildings and then spending all of my life outside of work, trying to stay outside of a building.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I have to be in the countryside.
Do you? What do you do? Dog walks?
Bikes? I do dog walks, mountain biking, anything that gets me out in the middle of nowhere, to be quite frank.
Same here. Same here.
Absolutely love it. I can find my way around in a field. Stick me in London, I get lost.
Yeah, same. I think a lot to be said for that. No, any time, any excuse to get out.
Peaceful. Peaceful. Thinking time.
I love my sports. I grew up with 3 older brothers, so quite used to fighting my way up and being competitive. I'm incredibly competitive, so anything, cards, games.
Yeah, we did a Dragon Boat regatta on Friday.
Yep.
To be fair, but we're all so competitive. It's the first time we've ever done it.
Just splashing.
And we're just, we're we're just screaming at each other, blaming each other when we're not going right.
You have to come to Cambridge. Got a great dragon fight.
We came second.
Did you?
Yeah, we came second. Never done it before. I think we could be professionals.
Good work. Good work. It's always next year.
But yeah, so competitive. But it was such a good crack, and it was for a great cause as well for the Purple Warriors, which is a veterans charity. So, but yeah, really enjoyed it. Anyway, that brings us to the end, Martin.
Wow, that went quick.
How did you find it?
It was good. Really
enjoy
good.
It?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, really good.
Thank you for coming on. Really enjoyed your insights. I found them really interesting, actually, particularly some of the things that you said. I'm sure you won't mind me saying, if anybody wants to reach out to you on LinkedIn that's thinking about a career in a similar space to yourself, that they can reach out to you.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end. Thank you very much, Martin. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks very much, Mark. Pleasure.
All right, guys, that brings us to the end of another episode. As Martin said, if you want to reach out to him, ask him any questions, feel free to do so. And as ever, you have a good one. See you later. Bye-bye.